Why would a grandmother smile when her daughter-in-law just denied her existence? That question lingers as the evening sun dips behind the trees, spilling gold across the wooden porch of a secluded cabin. I sat in a chair older than my daughter in, Law's empathy, watching my grandson Lance push toy cars through the dust. He was only 8, but his eyes already held the gentle curiosity that reminded me of his late grandfather, Henry. I thought I had seen life's cruelest tricks, but I hadn't expected this one. Lyra stood in the doorway, wine glass in hand, her voice loud and sharp. "She's not even your real grandmother, Lance." My heart didn't shatter. It hardened. Lance looked up, puzzled. "What do you mean, Mom?" What kind of woman would say that to her own child, in front of the woman she's targeting? Lyra's lips curled into that practiced smirk, the one I'd grown too familiar with. "I mean, sweetie, she's just your dad's mom. Not really family. She's only here because we have to look after her." Kent stepped into view behind her, as passive as ever. "Lyra's just tired, Mom. Don't take it personally." But why had I been just Mom for 3 years while funding their vacations and groceries in silence? No one knew I paid for this cabin. No one knew I funded their son's school fees. No one even cared that the paper plate they served me spaghetti on was symbolic of how little they thought I deserved. But none of that mattered anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I was ready. I smiled, not politely, not bitterly, but with the quiet satisfaction of someone who finally gets the answer they've been searching for. After 3 years of enduring subtle jabs, fake concern, and forced gratitude, Lyra had finally spoken without filters. She'd finally exposed her true self. Lance ran over and threw his arms around me. "You're my real grandma, Nana. I don't care what Mom says." His tiny hug cracked something in me, but not enough to break me. Instead, I pulled him closer and kissed his hair. "I love you, sweetheart," I whispered. How far would you go to prove someone's love or their lack of it? Inside, Kent set the table, while Lyra pretended to be burdened by feeding so many people. There were 4 of us. 4. Yet she made it sound like feeding me was a community service punishment. I watched the sun set fully now, swallowed by the mountains. My phone buzzed softly on my lap, a message from Richard, my attorney. "All preparations complete. Ready when you are." Can a woman who's been treated like a ghost for years become the storm they never saw coming? I typed back, "Tomorrow, at dinner." 3 years of silence were about to become one unforgettable evening. And when the truth comes out, will they survive it? What happens when the one you thought was powerless starts playing a game you didn't even know existed? The cabin was quiet that night, but not peaceful. Quiet like a lion crouched in tall grass. Quiet like breath held before a scream. I stood in the hallway, just outside the thin door of the guest room, or as Lyra called it, the old room. It still smelled faintly of bleach and lavender, fake freshness masking something rotten. I could hear her laughter from the living room, light and shallow. She was pouring another glass of wine while Kent scrolled through emails, ignoring the world as he always did. They thought they had another day of being in control. They didn't know what was coming. I sat on the bed, pulled out the tiny wooden box I'd kept hidden under my sweater in my suitcase. Inside were the signed documents, the trust papers, the notarized will, the sealed letters. Richard had helped me craft every line with precision. My estate, all $52 million of it, would not be theirs. Not now, not ever. How long can a person wear a mask before it begins to crack on its own? They thought I was weak because I stayed silent, because I didn't fight over dinner plates or couches. They never saw the strength it took to stay still while being slowly erased. But I had been playing chess while they played checkers. Every insult they threw, I caught and logged. Every cruel joke, every eye roll, every time Kent avoided my gaze, all of it had built the case they didn't even know was on trial. Lance came to the door, his little knuckles knocking softly. "Nana, can I sleep with you tonight?" I smiled. "Of course, sweetheart." He curled up next to me, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, the one I bought him last Christmas, the same gift Lyra rolled her eyes at for being cheap and unnecessary. His breathing slowed as he drifted off. His tiny hand rested on mine, and for a moment, I felt the gravity of it all press down on my chest. I wasn't doing this for me anymore. I was doing it for him. So he could grow up knowing what real love looked like, not performative kindness, but honest protection. What if the real inheritance isn't money, but the truth we choose to pass on? I stared at the ceiling. The plan was in motion. Tomorrow, during dinner, I would reveal everything. The fortune, the deception, the terms. No more secrets, no more acting. Richard had promised to be on standby. A video message, legal backup, financial verification, every angle covered. And when the truth explodes at that table, who will still be standing? Lyra had once joked that I couldn't even use a microwave properly. Let's see how she reacts to a legal bomb she can't shut off with a smirk. I closed my eyes beside Lance and exhaled. When you prepare for war in silence, can the enemy ever really win? The clock ticked. My heartbeat matched it. I'd waited 3 years for tomorrow. Now, it was just hours away. What happens when silence turns into a storm no one saw coming? Dinner was served, but the air tasted like tension. Lyra, dressed in her signature silk blouse, poured herself a third glass of wine. Kent checked his phone, barely looking up. Lance was trying to twirl spaghetti with his fork, giggling when it slipped off. I watched them closely, not as a guest this time, but as a woman about to flip their entire world upside down. I stood slowly, tapping the side of my water glass. The chime was soft, but it sliced through the noise like a siren. I have something to say, I said, steady and loud. Kent looked up. Lyra rolled her eyes. Lance froze with a fork halfway to his mouth. Why would a 70-year-old widow suddenly choose this exact moment to speak up? You all think I'm poor, that I've been living off scraps, grateful for your pity, I began, meeting their eyes one by one. You assumed your small kindnesses were charity, but the truth is I was never poor, not even for a day. Lyra blinked. What are you saying? I'm saying everything you think you know is a lie. I pulled a thick envelope from my bag and laid it on the table. This cabin? I paid for it. Your bills for the past 3 years? Covered. By me. I let you believe otherwise because I needed to see who you really are. Kent's mouth hung open. Mom, I was testing you, and you failed. How does it feel to be stripped of power at the exact moment you thought you had it all? I slid the legal documents forward. I have $52 million in assets, and not a penny will go to either of you. Lyra's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered. Instead, I've placed everything in a trust for Lance, managed by attorneys and financial experts, not you. Wait, what? Lyra gasped. You can't just... I can, and I have. Kent stood now too. Why? Why would you do this to us? Because you showed me who you are, and now I'm protecting my grandson from becoming like you. What do people do when everything they secretly feared becomes public reality? The trust will unlock when Lance turns 25, but only if he maintains a relationship with me. If not, it all goes to charity. His education, healthcare, and well-being will be secured by an independent fund, untouchable by either of you. Lyra swayed. Her face drained of color. She fainted. Thud. I didn't flinch. Kent looked like he'd seen a ghost. Mom, please. I turned to Lance. Sweetheart, pack your favorite toys. We're leaving tonight. I found us a new house, 2 hours from here. You'll love it. Lance smiled wide, like he'd just been handed the world. When the test ends and masks fall, what's left of family? As we walked out the door, I felt no guilt, just freedom. The weight of silence finally gone. I was no longer the burden. I was the one in control. I'm Lorna, and the test is over. Now, I'm living on my terms. For every woman who's been underestimated, your silence is not weakness, it's strategy. Subscribe now to see what happens next, and share if this story hit your heart. Comment your city. I want to see how far my truth travels.